Here's what's coming up. President Paul Biya suddenly resurfaces after over 1 month away from the public's eye. We'll discuss the implications of his absence and expectations now that he's around, and how COVID-19 battle will be for the Cameroonian people and the Cameroonian government. And also ahead, schools across the national territory might resume on the 1st of June this year, depending on the evolution of the COVID-19 in Cameroon. The Prime Minister made that announcement, so we'll look at all of that. We're coming to you live from ITV's headquarters here in Biya. I'm Ponje, and Press Forum starts right now. A very warm welcome to you wherever you're watching us. We are pleased to know that you're tuning into your TV set to follow Press Forum. Thank you very much. We are joined in the studio to discuss some of the issues here. Mr. Sama Abang Mugwa, a social commentator. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Paul, and it's my pleasure to be here again one more time to discuss issues that have made news in the press for the week just ending.
Right. So before we get to the militants, what other panelists, I beg your pardon, what must have caught your attention in the news?
Paul, lots of news-making events. Maybe I start with the very last day of the work week, where our president resurfaced, as I heard you read out in your topical issues, the resurface of our head of state, who received the French ambassador to Cameroon. And what caught my attention was an unmasked president who it has been alleged has repeatedly called on his citizens to wear face masks until it has been made compulsory. Yeah. But he appears in public receiving dignitaries unmasked, even though every other person around him was masked. Yeah. I wonder the contradiction that we find in all of that. Paul, again, another news-making event which might not have caught the eye of pressmen last week. At a time when nationally schools and school-related activities have been called to a halt and have been shut down nationwide, I bring to the notice of the authorities of this region that students of a government technical high school, Moliko Biya, have been asked to come back to school, and they have been engaged in what they call internship activities at a time when students have been asked to stay at home and should not be used for commercial activities by their parents. School authorities have chosen to defy the orders of their hierarchy and putting people's children in harm's way. I find that embarrassing, and I wonder if the authorities of this region are aware that it is happening just under their nostrils, and that as I speak, children, even today being a Saturday, children are out at construction sites under the authority of their teachers and their school authorities, working as part of their internship. I wonder how far the measures that have been taken by the government will actually go to fight this pandemic, when at our own little corners we take upon ourselves to defy such instructions. I wonder if the regional delegate for secondary education is aware of that. I wonder if the governor of the region is aware of that. But I think that they should look into that, because I know of parents who have vowed that their children will not be part of that exercise. And when schools effectively begin, whether the authorities of that school like it or not, their children will be given the opportunity to carry out that academic exercise. But I think that it defeats the purpose of a school lockdown and shutdown when we choose to take measures that are counter to what the state thinks is for the good of our citizens.
All right, we certainly do hope that the authorities would look into that as quickly as possible.
I hope they do as quickly as possible, as we say, Paul.
Right, and we are also joined in the studio by Mr. Njumo Cyril. He's a CRM militant, member of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement political party. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mr. Paul J. All my admiration for the wonderful job you have been doing. You are one of those young people that is defining the concept of youthfulness in our beloved region and in the nation as a whole.
Thank you.
It's been a while now that I've been following you, and I take delight each time you are hosting a program. Having said that, also permit me to greet my co-panelists with whom I have learned to speak in the public, Mr. Sama and our own senator in JCI, Senator Mofo George. What caught my attention this week is so many appointments that come out from the presidency. The last on the list is the appointment of the former Prime Minister, Philemon Yang, who is now to assume the position of
Grand Chancellor of National
Grand Chancellor. 20th May is up next, and so we are looking up to them to start working on medals and other awards.
Yeah.
You would like to know also that the survival program of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement is faring so well. The coordinator, the national coordinator, who is no other person than the former advisor to the president, is
Christian Pinda-Ikoka?
Yeah, Christian Pinda-Ikoka. Thanks for really supporting me there. Recently nominated regional coordinator and the general coordination office, including member of the state. Now,
so
this comes in at a time when the Minat boss, Paul Atanganji, had shown some reserve on the movement, especially on the resource mobilization strategy. But we want to say that faced to adversity, a world pandemic like COVID-19 that is ravaging life without authorization, we could not and that we keep advocating.
All right, we certainly the CRM might certainly not miss out in today's discussion because they are intrinsically involved in this. Mr. George Mofo, we thank you also for joining us. You are a consultant. We appreciate you being here. What struck your attention in the course of news-making stories?
Thank you for welcoming me, and greetings to your viewers and my co-panelists. I think I will take the exception to rather be inspired by what came out from Donald Trump's backyard, when he decided to pull out of the WHO, that is the World
Suspend funding
organization, with the American funding, paradoxically in a period where that particular organ of the United Nations needed much fund to combat the pandemic, which is on the doorstep of humanity. I'm sure this is also one of those enigmatic characteristics of Donald Trump, because it looks like whenever America is not first, he does everything to make America at least somehow put on the news agenda as the first nation to be mentioned. It looks like now that China is threatening to beat them, especially in terms of visibility economically, that he has started to still put America first by making headline news at withdrawing from a body with the funding of the American, which I'm sure some Americans should be very happy, because people ordinarily think that the Americans or America is just generous because of its wealth. But some Americans are not happy that they are using much of their monies to support international activities rather than plowing it back to Americans first. And that's why we find most Americans are still struggling between medic aid and the other elements that goes along with their safety and health care. So I think, to me, that is part of the politics of politicians.
All right.
And it was intriguing.
All right, thank you very much. I thank you all for being part of the show. I want us to start the first issue of discussion today with this report. The President of the Republic, Paul Biya, has made his first public outing after over a month out of the public eye. He received the French ambassador to Cameroon, Christophe Guilou, on Thursday, April 16th, and where he said they discussed on coronavirus in Cameroon, France, and of course around the world. He comes at a time when there have been concerns about his whereabouts, and the Cameroonian people have been clamoring that the head of state address them in a public address. Let's have more in this report. This is Paul Biya, the president commonly referred to as the Lion Man. In the past weeks, rumors about his death have been making rounds on social media. But here he is in flesh and form. He is no stranger to death rumors, as he has falsely been declared dead by his opponents many times in his presidency. President Paul Biya had been absent from the public's eye for well over 1 month. He was last seen on March 11, 2020, when he received the U.S. ambassador to Cameroon at the Unity Palace. On Thursday, April 16th, Paul Biya met with the French ambassador to Cameroon, Christophe Guilou. The head of state revealed.
Many thanks, Mr. Nje. As I told you from the introduction, that the role of political party is not to be an alliance with the ruling party. So in that line, we were just doing our role as a political party, that of the opposition. Pundits who are very critical said, now that we don't have representative, elected representative, we need to sit quiet and listen to those who are listening candidates during the last twin election of February 9th. To them, I just want to answer that you only know a good tailor from his handwork. So the position that the Cameroon Renaissance movement still occupy in the political landscape of Cameroon, indispensable of their representation in either houses or the local decentralized collective, simply shows that we have an agenda of change and not of participation. That being clear off, Mr. Biya resurfaced simply holds with a governance system that has been ruling over Cameroon for 37 years, that of silence government, a governance system that does not raise a lot of dust, simply because the tools that have been used focus on policies and laws amendment. If you check well how Cameroon is managed, a lot of intervention has been done at the level of policies and laws to maintain the people under a status quo that does not permit them to express themselves freely most at times. And that is why each time when somebody goes beyond that threshold that has been set by the system, automatically the people get furious, and especially
but get back to the question. I asked this. The CRM,
we cannot be ashamed.
Yes.
We cannot be ashamed. It's only an irresponsible man who hears that his child is sick and take leave of the house. It's only very irresponsible of Mr. Biya. Again, all what happened transpired at the presidency, to me personally, is still an alleged story. Because I have checked on the website of the French embassy before coming here. I have not seen any official statement. As
the French ambassador has tweeted.
Well,
now he met the president.
I want to have proof for that. The last check I have is only at on Mr. Biya's account that there is a report that he met with the French
so you're doubting your own president?
Mr. Biya, first of all, for me, is an alleged. Everything about him is... I don't want to use your channel to propagate some information, but to us, we still hold that he had an opportunity to prove his legitimacy to Cameroonians. He had an opportunity to take lead of the destiny of Cameroonians. Over 1,000 today are registered to have contacted the virus. And the 20 that has been declared, again, we are very, very skeptical about, because there was a fateful Saturday. I want to take you one Saturday before this one.
Quickly, before I bring in Mr. Mofo.
Yes. We had 6 cases of deaths that occur in our national territory, but the Minister of Public was reporting too. We have had cases of people who died recently in Douala, following a report I followed on Balafon, that somebody died in Hospital Deido, and the family was saying that the person was having a high blood, something like that. Yet the government was reporting that the person has shown indication of COVID-19 symptoms, and so the corpse was seized from the family and buried elsewhere. So I'm just bringing all this fact check to prove to you that the statistics that is being pumped are not trustworthy to us. That is why our brothers in the diaspora, despite the warning from the government, have hitherto moved forward to sponsor. As I talk to you, more money is getting into the account of the Survivor Project simply because the system in place is not trustworthy. Mr. Biya, what has Mr. Biya done recently to prove to Cameroonians that he is alive? Instead of taking the floor and speaking, he has instead been moving from one appointment to the other, up to bringing Joseph Oona, the Constitutional Council, to replace a debt. You know, sometimes we should not just be jumping. Mr. Biya wants to prove by all costs that he's alive. Okay? What we are asking from him, which is very simple and clear, is that he should make a public statement to Cameroonians. Okay. He can do that even by granting interview. Wheresoever he wants to do, he should do it. But if it's for the appointment or for the press or for the audiences that he's granting and that nobody can fact check that, I want to say sorry, I have reserved for all.
All right. Mr. Mofo George, were you surprised by the resurfacing of the head of state on Thursday?
Why should I be surprised? It's not the only question you asked me that I was surprised. Probably I have to send my own question to answer you if I had said that I was not surprised.
No, maybe you would tell us why you're not surprised. Because some people, there had been rumors, of course, hovering that the head of state was no more because of his silence. Now he resurfaced.
At least you are using the word rumor, and public communication, you know what rumor is. I don't want to go into some of those antics of partisanship and start saying whether you love a man or hate a man. I just wish to be clear with myself to say that Mr. Paul Biya is the head of state of Cameroon, and the death of the head of state of Cameroon, like any other state, is defying how it is to be announced and the procedure for continuity of the state. Yes. So I am not sure there is an individual Cameroonian who is more intelligent than the Cameroonian constitution that would define the death of somebody top class of the head of state, and then the whole country is silent without activating the instrument of the constitution. You see, I've always said, and I keep on telling those people who will think that they can replace an individual because of the individual permanent absence, that we live individual lives, and if you have your small shop and you don't focus on ensuring that shop grows, and you're also praying that the the shock of your competitor
Mm-hmm.
should die so that their own shop becomes bigger. It is a fallacy, because your customers remain your customer, and the customer of your competitor remains his or her customer. Customers don't buy because of the fact that you are, or your goods are better than that. It is the way you treat them.
Yeah.
This is simple business logic. And I also insist that, you see, when we focus our energy on things that will not affect our individual lives per se, because if you are a teacher and then you have 4 classes to teach, whoever is the head of state, you still remain a teacher. Your life essentially will not change to become probably a replacement of the head of state that you might somehow be happy that he is alive or dead. The next thing I want us to know, again, in coming from a certain traditional background where you find the strength of a monarchy. It's just of recent that we find our traditional leaders even delve into public life in such a way whereby they even come out and make public statements. I know situations, I think it still exists in some fandom today, that even in public events, they speak through some spokesperson while they are physically present.
Yeah.
And it is said that they don't address people in the public. No doubt in communication also, physical presence also counts, because once you hear and you see, talk less of, you also see action, it multiplies, the multiplier effect of your understanding of what the person is saying is bigger and better. But I think we have so much preoccupation as Cameroonians, especially on individual survival level, to be preoccupied whether the head of state is alive or dead.
Okay.
You will see what has happened this week. Some families have bemoaned or mourned their lost ones, their loved ones. Some are also celebrating probably the appointment of their loved ones. Such is life.
Yeah.
So I think my own humble opinion is that what we should rather be seeing and doing at this particular moment in time is how to confront this virus that is attacking the big, the mighty, the medium, and every other person, and see how we stay safe and stay healthy. I will confront life. So to me, that should be the priority of every Cameroonian.
All right, let me just briefly follow up on that. You said earlier that you are, of course, you're not surprised by the president's reappearance. Now I want to ask, were you concerned about the fact that he was personally silent on the COVID-19 situation in Cameroon? He had not addressed the Cameroonian people.
Again, Paul J., we are talking about a state, we are not talking about an individual. Probably we could transform Mr. Biya as an institution, but those institutions are there because of other instruments of governance which exist. The National Assembly is on, the Senate is on, the Prime Ministry is on, the various ministries are on. So
but the head of state is off.
No, he is off, but acting
physically.
Look, let us be talking based on the law and its instruments. The head of state appoints and defines policies. They didn't say the head of state should implement those policies. By leadership of delegation, he has delegated. You might try to say that he has delegated too much, but that is part of his own leadership style. And for 37 years, Cameroonians have been living with that type of style, and you find it at the down of his life to start doubting. Before now, historically, does Paul Biya easily grant public statements or interviews and all of that? So why should you expect him? When
his peers around the world are tackling this head on themselves.
That's the error that we make. Comparison,
okay.
When you see one person dies in a particular bomb explosion, the head of state of other countries even stop their participation in international conferences or stop the other thing and come to, or hear that the bomb explodes somewhere. You've heard that people have died, whether it's in a train incident or fire explosion or all of those things. Exceptionally,
when you can be able to predict somebody, you start preoccupying that the person should become a left-handed person who is right-handed for all his life. That is where you become, because you are trying to change somebody without changing your own perception of how you see that person. You discover that you are instead developing stress and other elements of illness that you only have yourself to blame and your family to mourn your absence.
Okay, Mr. Salmon?
Yeah, let me differ with George a bit. Yes. What he said is very true. Comparaison n'est pas raison, mais ça donne raison. Or ça peut donner raison. It can give us reason to criticize, and it is not because you have continued or you have perpetuated a culture of arrogance towards your own people that even 50 years after you think it should be accepted as your way of life. No. There is this saying that the beatings should continue until morals improve. The criticism should continue until attitudes change. We can forgive we can tolerate or we can accept certain lapses given the circumstances. But we are talking of a crisis which is of global scale and which has to do with loss of lives. The US is now recording 24,000 deaths as we speak.
Over 30,000, 36,000.
Thank you for that correction. And we have a president, a phantom president, who chooses to stay in his comfort zone and rules us by delegation. Did Cameroonians elect him by delegation? No. Cameroonians, it is alleged, elected him 71% directly. Direct universal suffrage.
It's alleged the Constitutional Council.
Well, allegations are also created by law.
Okay.
Yeah. So you find that Cameroonians cannot go to the poll and overwhelmingly elect you, and you choose to deal with them through delegated representation. I mean, that is what the Francophones call c'est la méfiance. That is disregard. Disregard for the power of the people whom you believe, or it is assumed, you rule. I think that the fact that you continue in error over years does not suddenly change that error into correctness. And I see no reason why we should be indexed for expecting him to like do the needful in a very serious and dire moment like this. Again, I expect the president, just like a majority of Cameroonians do, George, we expect the president to take the forefront. By virtue of his age, yes, he may not be moving along the streets of Yaoundé, but we expect him at the forefront, even using virtual technology. Let Cameroonians see and be comforted that they have a president who is even aware. Permit me just through this one, which may be an exaggeration, that where somebody said maybe the head of state did not even know that people have to put on masks before appearing in maybe public places. That is why he appeared in public without his own mask. And so he must have been embarrassed and then asked them that, what are you people doing with masks? That may just be an exaggeration. But I think that it is attitudes like this that gives room for such exaggerated out of topic analysis. We expect. He is still the president of this republic. I don't want to like get into the issue of President Liu and Ben. Legitimately, he is still our president. Whether legally he is or he is not, but we expect the president to be at the forefront when there is fire on the roof.
Okay.
Paul and Beck, I want to agree totally with Mr. Mufo when he said we should focus more on COVID-19, and that is exactly what we are doing. But we cannot go to a football match without our captain, the person that everybody knows by virtue that he is supposed to be at the forefront.
The same captain you don't seem to want to recognize?
Mr. Biya has just given an evidence of his illegality.
Just hold on. You called the president, Mr. Biya, your captain, but you of the CRM don't recognize him as such.
Let us not confuse between the role of a political party Okay?
So are you accepting here that Mr. Biya is the president of the republic?
I will never accept as far as the October the 7th election of 2018 is concerned, Mr. Biya won the election.
But you just called him your captain.
We are going with a perspective, a global perspective. Okay. I wanted to go by age because some demographic dividends were used to explain some fact to justify why he could even sit quiet. But I want to say the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, at the very early stage when he really started ravaging, especially in Italy, she came out, spoke to the United Kingdom,
and she's 93,
spoke to the Commonwealth, and spoke to the world. Yes. By extension. Just her voice was enough to silence some pains. And that's why I'm telling you, when we have, because after World War II, COVID-19 is one of that other life-claiming a weapon that has been used against the world. That is why Donald Trump does not make reserve when he wants to blame, because losing such a huge number of people, of his citizens, cannot comfort him. Let me put it that way. And so, how do I understand, even by good faith, that Cameroon should be compared to a provision shop? I want to distance myself from that kind of reasoning. That 37 years after, when the formula that we have used to grow up has failed completely and is flagrantly clear to everybody that that was not the right recipe, that we sit here and tell Cameroonians that we should compare our own pot of, that we should contain ourselves with our own pot of soup and forget about. No, a nation can never be compared to that. I will tell you why, and that is why I'm going to that. Political party exists in order to compete and have power one day. It means that power by its essence, democracy by its essence, give room for people to compete to get there. But they must do that following procedures. Now, if Mr. Biya through that procedure became the president, as you people are forcing me to accept here, that I pray one day I
we are not forcing you.
Me, then it means that where he is, people can put his position at stake, whether truly he was elected before he's behaving like that. And that is where the fundamental, and that's where now I meet with Mr. Sama's reasoning. That, of course, if truly he represents the people, if truly he took an oath on the aftermath of October the 7th election, that was on the 24th or so of October, when he went to the National Assembly and took an oath before the electorate, before the representative of the people, and swore that he is going to stand and defend Cameroonian, by mighty life part him, take him out of this war. That is what he said on top of the Bible. And so we are telling him an opportunity came up to prove to Cameroonian that truly he could stand for them, and he did not. As for all his ambassadors, all his lieutenants that he sent on the field, the Prime Minister at the forefront, I must tell you that the Prime Minister does not have the legitimacy to close borders. He does not have that.
But he said the instructions came from the head of state.
That argument, that layman argument, that cheap song that they have been singing has caught attention to everybody. That is why today we can even defy sometime publicly the signature of the head of state, simply because he has already given a delegation, a power of delegation to sign for his signature to be applied on document to the SG. I'm telling you that anybody can stand up today to make his point pass easily, tell Cameroonian that it is the head of state that have said. Did Nalova Lyonga, that's why I'm going to learn, I don't really want to monopolize. Nalova Lyonga signed, Professor Nalova Lyonga signed.
Any document Ngongo signs in the name of the head of state, it's Ngongo's signature that's there, and he says it's from the head of state.
No, I'm just trying to use an example of a document that has been signed with power vested on them. Wanting to say that it's because of the head of state politics that they want to implement, since they are implementator on the field. They signed that document, and when they discovered that it was going to bring them headache, they started denying the document openly until the Prime Minister had to come to their rescue. What I want to really say here is that it is not late. If truly Mr. Biya is alive, we have now crossed over 1,000 affected people in Cameroon.
with the COVID-19, he should still come out, say something. He should grant another audience to another ambassador, I don't know which one, but let him say something that people can hear, that truly he is the one talking. All that mimics. With technology today, we can produce those mimics and prove that.
Mr. Sama, very quickly before bringing Mr. Mufo.
Yeah, I think that I may want to really distance myself from the extremist position of Cyril, and which is typical of his political leaning, putting to doubt the existence or the survival of the head of state.
You are the one saying so, right?
Because if he says that for the head of state to prove that he is alive, which means there is an allegation, and so that he is not alive. I think I may, as in my own personal capacity, want to distance myself from that, and then reiterate my focus or the thesis of my argument, which is the counterproductive effect of President Biya's governance instrument of silence, which is counterproductive and which does not augur well for the nation and does not comfort his children as much as he ought to have been doing as an active president.
Okay. Mr. George Mufo, you made the case earlier that so far as the government is functional, there is invariably no much necessity for the head of state to also bother himself coming at the forefront. If you were an advisor to the head of state now, how would you advise him to tackle this COVID-19?
If I were an advisor, why don't you say if I was also the head of state of Cameroon, how would I have done it?
Okay, you could also assume that.
The issue here, and I just hope that we should upgrade this discussion without focusing on what is not yet done, what is being done, and see how we can propose alternatives as improvement of what is currently going on. Now, everything that has been done according to the current leadership headed by Mr. Biya, and he has done it just like he has been doing for the past 36, 37 years. And we assume the responsibility because it is generally said in political science, a state or a nation gets the leader they deserve. Say what we will say till tomorrow, there are two ways to take away a leader. Either you use the coup d'etat to the military or you go in by elections. And once we have chosen the legitimate and legal way, which is by election, and the institutions that are there to declare the winner, declare somebody the winner, I think democracy, decency requires that we wait for the next time for another election to be called, and then we use those. You see, what has been going on in this country, I wish to let you know that there are some people who probably, without criticizing the head of state, and doing this pro bono, they are not even earning a single franc for doing whatever they are doing. And they can also show evidence that they love Cameroon more than the other Cameroonians who are actually going about doing their professional activities and all of that. You see, we go back to analyze the alternatives which are in place. And I wish to say, when you look at our politicians, be they those who are created by decree or those who decide to create political businesses in the name of political parties, you will come to discover that there is a Cameroonian culture that is very easy to accuse, blame, and condemn. Most times, we don't propose alternatives. Now, you're asking me about alternatives.
Yes.
The issue now is we are talking about using all the other elements which we have as human intelligence in a particular geographical space to also propose probably local solutions on how we can be able to address this global pandemic using our local intelligence. To me, I think the best thing now, which up to now, we have been able to reduce it to medical problems where we get medical doctors to intervene we have been able to get probably traditional or call them educationalists or communicators. But there's an element here which goes now to address the issue now of psychology, where people are just stressful because probably when they withdraw to their houses because of the fact that we are confined, we are advised to stay home, they want to have a communication that is also inspiring. Not just instructions and declaration, but a form of interactional communication that will also, if you go back to history, when the proponent of New Deal in the United States, Roosevelt, he had what he called the fireside chat, where he used to engage Americans in some sort of updating and getting them to see that he was actually the man at the moment. You see, with the presence, which comes out for me to say, alternatively, you were asking me to advise whoever is the head of state, Paul Biya or whoever, is that we have not been able to also harness the strength of technology, whereby we get all the various technological prowess that humanity has been endowed with in Cameroon, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Skype, whether it is WhatsApp, whether it is... No doubt we hear that he tweeted when he received the French ambassador. But I think if he moves now at another level where it is not just graphical writing, but also engaged now in verbal communication using those same media, which is enhanced by technology. Because today you can easily address people by Skype, by Zoom, by teleconference, all of those things. Because I can understand the perspective of those people who, because of, people have been used to coming back in the evening, either they are going out to share a bottle or two with people, and then they are watching what I call it a Champions League and the American football, basketball and all of that. So with the idleness that has come now to the fact that Cameroonians are finding themselves now learning a new lifestyle. You see, now we are more struggling for livelihood than life, whereby it is about how do we cope with our present circumstances, whereby you find a whole day longer than the norm because you find empty space, and it doesn't even worsen now because you find scenarios now where you have power outage left and right, so you find yourself just in darkness, in all the reasons that you could even distract yourself. There is nothing that can even require, in fact, as a light-hearted input, I was reading somewhere that Ghanaian women are about protesting because the level of sexual torture has increased because the men have become so idle that they spend all their time only on those under stomach games and all of those things. So you discover that we definitely have to protest to find our way out of all of this. Okay. So my advice would be that with the advent and the development of new forms of technology, probably, even if, when the Minister of Public Health used to come out every evening with his update, now he has changed his strategy, that he no more announcing census figures of those who are infected. But using it to talk about those who are treated, and that's another strategy in communication. I think also that the wishes now is also that Mr. Biya, who has not been used to, formerly Cameroonians could predict that he has twice a year to talk to Cameroonians, 31st and the 10th of February. When even the people died in Seka and the other death, he did not do a particular address and all of that. Probably with the change of times and with the facility that he can even sit in his bedroom without all of those things, the other media of technology to address, I would have also encouraged him and his other accolades to be using. Because even the Prime Minister we are talking about, the Prime Minister probably comes out only when he has that is instruction. And there's a cliche in this country that always says high instruction. Whether it's there will not be a day that will hear between instruction or lower instruction. Okay, that brings me to my brief question before I get to the other members of the panel. You've been speaking in general terms, and I want to particularize it now. Are you, Mr. George Mofo, yearning to hear from your president, Mr. Biya? I'm indifferent. Yes, I can accept. whether he talks to us or he doesn't talk to me in particular. I have a preoccupation, and that preoccupation is, to me, what is happening at the level of HUD, it is borrowing from the same author, c'est sans objet. My concern is how I can be influenced by local community and by extent make an impact to the world.
Okay. Mr. Sama, those who have been propagating the alleged death of the head of state fail to take into account the fact that it was said by the Prime Minister or the government that the National Solidarity Fund was created by the head of state himself. Can a dead man create such a fund?
No, I think without demeaning your question, I think if I were to cue in from where Mr. Mufol ended, we are living in a country where so much of presidential affinity has been usurped. Never would you see the Minister for Territorial Administration go somewhere and say, I come under the authority of the government or the head of government, my Prime Minister. Yes. And so you find a situation where everybody claims to be so closely attached to the head of state, and all of that boils down to one thing: governance that is characterized by the creation of a personality cult. Without the head of state, nothing functions. Where you even find basic issues. Now, the head of state takes so much to himself and has given the impression that without him, this country might cease to exist. And it has been used as a thermometer to measure his efficacy. And his surrogates have swallowed that hook, lighter, and sinker, so that it is as if the government of Cameroon is irrelevant or is personified to an individual. I don't want to think that people say things that are not true, but his attitude has given room for people to say things that are not true. Okay. That does not exist only with the president. Even in little organizations, when you make it a one-man show and make it look as if everything starts and ends with you, it creates room for such unpleasant situations. Whether it was signed by him or it was not signed by him, let me tell you one thing. If you have been chanced to read through the transition from Yasimbe Eyadema of Togo to his son Ford Eyadema, it's a pathetic situation. And without getting into that, because it may have to do with the sovereignty of a nation, but there are just so many things that can be done in the name of, allegedly, in the name of a president. Meanwhile, the president himself is either not aware or might not have consented as much as it is claimed to have been done in his name. Okay. Without being so much of a CRMist militant, I simply just believe that Cameroon has a president who has chosen to be docile, who has chosen to be withdrawn, who has chosen to be inactive, who has chosen to govern by carefreeness at the detriment of his nation. Whether he is dead or he's not dead, as an ordinary Cameroonian, I think that we have a president who is alive, but not doing what his children expect him to do.
My heart takes the lights when I listen to my two vendor panelists, because it boils down very clearly to their conclusion that at one end, there is an urgent need to see things happen at the local community, but in a highly centralized government like ours, we should be expecting that it move from the center to the periphery. Then from the other end, there is a need to see an improvement in the governance policy, in the manner in which the top heads administer his collaborate. And one term has been used repeatedly: surrogates. If you go to the political dictionary to find out, you want to show a kind of imperial relationship between a leader and his collaborator. So from that perspective, we'll clear off the aspect of collaboration and say that, well, it's a one-man show. Okay. We are in a system where, but you push your question to the next part, and Mr. Josh helped you in that point that now we should move to what has been done and what could be improved. I also want to register to that line of discussion to say that, okay, countries around the world in Central Africa have pumped out money, buying basic food needs to their to their citizens. Here in Biya, we have seen some few men of God do that. Recently, an African giant footballer promised that he was going to extend some gift, and it was to the Southwest. The Chinese billionaire Jack Ma equally shipped some consignment of first aid,
testing kits,
yes,
and so on.
All those things. But the layman, even this face mask that I'm hanging, I sat in my office today in the heart of Moliko and saw some things that made me smile. There was a young man who had used a piece of paper and have tied this elastic rope on and was hanging. Now, the paper has extended up to a point that he has turned by the side, and so he could not hold any longer. Then, as he was coming out, he batched on the truck of the military men, and so he ran into my office, and I saw him sweating. All I could see was a poor student, maybe, that unfortunately he cannot afford 200 francs to have this. So it's just to give you just a picture of what some people might be going through out.
Okay, so you're talking about what the government has already done.
The government has done. It's doing a lot of things.
Okay, but talk about the National Solidarity Fund, which in government circles is now being hailed.
It is very poor that at the heart of this infringing crisis, that Mr. Biya's government should instead be looking on Cameroonians to contribute money and give them, without them putting even 5 francs. Has any project? Excuse me.
1 billion was.
Excuse me. No, when they say that they have created. Oh, Mr. Anje, you will not take me back to the.
No, but it was clear.
No, when they said they have created a
National
fund,
Solidarity Fund,
nothing is inside.
No, it was said that 1 billion francs CFA was inside.
Please.
Are you refusing the fact that there was 1 billion francs in the fund?
Can I take responsibility of my statement,
No.
sir?
Are you refusing the fact that there was 1 billion francs CFA in the fund?
No, a National Solidarity Fund was created, okay, budgeted at the tune of 1 billion. Is that okay? It's not the first time. That of the Anglophone crisis was budgeted at 12-point-something million. How much will cough out finally? Now, if you want to get the statistics of the money, excuse me, if you want to get the statistics of the refund that have entered, follow the Ministry of Public Health. You are going to have updates. The last time I followed it was roughly around 700 million. Okay? I don't want to be pretentious to think that that is the only amount of money that has been declared so far to take care, because on daily basis it's reported that one patient consumes closely to 300,000. So if you have to budget that for the 15 days that you can cover, it's over 4 million and something. So what I want to say is that the European Union recently signed to relieve some debts that we are benefiting from. I want to talk about that money. I know part of that money could be used to cater for the hotels that started hosting the quarantine who travel from abroad. Part of the money will be used to ship, to do other things, but I want them to remember the layman. I want some of those things to reach the layman.
The Prime Minister's address on the 3rd point, he said the President of the Republic instructed that final studies be done on the government analysis on the rate of the coronavirus in Cameroon, so they can know to the extent to which they can help sectors and the lame and common homes.
When I'm talking, I don't trust this government. So all what I'm talking is get towards contributing money and giving the survival project. There's a project that you have been silencing me here not to talk about, which is actually the one that is going to touch the life of Mr. Sama and mine, and the survival project.
Let me bring Mr. Mofo in very quickly. Mr. Mofo, when you hear Cyril say what he says and alleges that the Solidarity Fund, the 1 billion francs CFA that was announced that is in the fund right now, is inexistent. What do you say to his level of criticism against the government and the head of state?
You know, like I said, we will definitely have what I call parallel lines of thinking, which is obvious because I hate really to be paternalistic when I respect people's opinion till tomorrow. But I will always want to say what I know is published and right, because it can be referenced. What is actually clear is that there is an official fund called Solidarity Fund that was created and publicly announced with a disbursement of 1 billion CFA from the Cameroon budget.
Yes.
And within that fund, we are made to understand that other good will Cameroonians have also contributed in cash to the neighborhood of about 700 million, notwithstanding those who have contributed in kind, like what happened as late as yesterday with the French ambassador leading some French multinational firms to donate goods in kind towards the fight against. But suffice to say that what we should be saying here is that one will also go by public pronouncement from the Minister of Public Health, especially after the coordination meeting last Thursday. He actually said that as at now, the Cameroonian taxpayer has been able to lose 50+ billion in the treatment of the those who have been infected. This is monies coming out from the public treasury based on the fact that the government had announced that every patient who is quarantined will be taken care of without dropping a dime from his pocket. And you even can go ahead to see that he has not only announced that the government has already spent this amount of money, but they have also come out with official communique that any medical institution that is asking people to pay is an illegal act and they will be liable to sanction.
Right.
And if you look at the other records, which are also clear, whereby we have clear indication that 4 health institutions in Yaoundé, one has actually, or 2 they have closed permanently, and one is actually. So you see, emotionally we can say whatever we want to say, which is our right to make those declarations. But I'm saying that one of the things that we should be responsible is that the truth does not hide, and it's not coming from whether it's from love or hatred, but we should not use politics to manipulate a clear case of health disaster and frighten Cameroonians outside there that the state is not doing anything to actually, because if we are going to organize a debate on the various input of the various stakeholders, you just organize that, I will have something to say vis-a-vis what the other stakeholders are doing parallel to the state. But I think that is not our focus of discussion here, because I saw that we started from, when I was coming here, I saw 3 topics that we were supposed to focus on, and the first one was supposed to be discussing on the reappearance of the head of state. But I discovered that we have now going to be talking about other issues which, though relevant, but I think it is also supposed to be focused on how has the absence or the presence of the head of state going to fast track what was slowed down because of his absence in the public scene. How has his public appearance fast tracked those things which were actually not in place? Because what is actually happening with the measures that they were announcing through him, what he calls, the Prime Minister calls high instructions.
Yes.
We should be asking and assessing that, well, because it was announced by the Prime Minister, a Cameroonian not respecting it because he was the prime minister, and if the same head of state now decides to announce those things himself, Cameroonians will, you saw the scenario that I saw here when part of the members of this house, they were not respecting simple social distancing, which we are talking about, which is for our own safety and our own health first. It's not the head of state. So if the head of state, who is the headmaster of the whole country, because he does not take his own life with optimum precaution by not putting up a mask, and I know that if I don't put up mask as an individual, I'll be infected. Yes. Should I go and say, because he's not putting, let me expose myself to danger and all of those things? I think we all as individuals first, we have a responsibility to ourselves, to our family, and the rest should be based on convenience. Okay. So I think I would encourage us that we have a priority, which is this pandemic. I want to congratulate you guys at the level of High TV, because you have been doing so much to bring in the various stakeholders who are focusing on what contributions are they going to make at their own level, either as group of individuals or corporate, to be able to reduce the incidence of the pandemic.
Thank you. Mr. Sama, I want you to have the very last word before we take on the second issue. The issue of the president's absence and presence, and of course the relevance of his presence now to the country's fight against COVID-19. Where do you place that?
No. I think I have made my opinion crystal clear on the issue. With a more present head of state, the fight would have been more serious and more rigorous and more vigorous. But with a more secluded head of state removed from the center of activities, it dampens the spirit, and it possibly keeps the ordinary citizen worried. And I think that it is not his absence from the scene is a counterproductive move.
Mr. Njimosi, I should give you 1 minute very quickly to...
Yes, my brother. We should not leave this topic without emphasizing that there is an urgent need that local authorities should really take active move towards addressing the basic needs of the people. In my neighborhood, there are still a lot that goes for days without eating. And my concern is that the government should organize something that will even share rights, as we saw one religious leader doing back here. We should be able to see more of those things.
It's analyzing its response strategy as the Prime
that.
Minister did announce. But let's take a very short break now, and when we come back, we'll take on the very second issue of today's discussion. Stay with us. We thank you for staying with us. Now, the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute, has announced that schools might resume on the 1st of June 2020, depending on the evolution of the coronavirus. He made the announcement on Thursday, while after chairing an interministerial meeting aimed at monitoring government's response strategy to the coronavirus. Let's now discuss the potential date for school resumption. Mr. Sama, you, of course, are a teacher. You understand the intricacies involved in socio-political situations, health crisis, and education. The Prime Minister or the government has set a date or a date that they project might be suitable for schools to resume, but depending on the evolution. When you look at June 1st, it's just a few months away. The way coronavirus is escalating in the country, would that be a suitable time?
I think that is where we find a problem. The school shutdown was part of a global package of shutting down other sectors of economic and social life. And it was not just the school system alone. It had to do with public assemblage, not more than 50 persons at a time in a particular space, shutting down churches, controlling markets, controlling the flow of persons within our communities and across. And the schools sector might be very peculiar because it has to do with a system that has been calendared to start at a particular time and end at a particular time.
Yes.
With churches, there is no start day for churches and fellowship, and there is no end date.
Yes.
But the school system has a calendar that must end at a particular period, and then there is vacation, and then we now kickstart another academic year. That is where the government finds itself in a dilemma. But again, one thing I should raise is that it is not just a Cameroonian problem. And in as much as for once, the government is trying to be proactive, thinking before time and projecting into the future, as you said, it gives us room to doubt so many things.
Like? By
the time on the 17th of March, when the PM, or was it the 16th, when the PM came out with the initial 13 commandments, with the shutting down of schools as one of them, we were still at about 3 or 4 cases tested positive. Now we're talking of above 1,000. The number of deaths have increased to about 22, or is it 24? Number of cases under oxygen reanimation is increasing. And unless our health experts, in whom I have faith, have been able to like project that by this date we expect the curve to start descending, because it must always go up and then eventually come down to when the palliatives or the solutions would have been found. I wonder whether the projections of the government as to that day are based on these projections by health and medical experts, or it's just some fantasy. That would be my worry. To be more realistic, have we found a solution that we are implementing? You might tell me that the Minister of Scientific Research has said that 5,000 chloroquine tablets could be manufactured. Is it in a day or is it in a month? But again, we are coming out with that at a time when even the World Health Organization has not officially authorized the administration of chloroquine as a solution to the pandemic. Mr. Mufo might not like it when we compare, but we are talking with more scientifically and medically advanced societies, like the US, that is projecting that is by 2022 that that's in the next 18 months that they expect to have overcome this menace. And then we are looking at June 1st. Why did we close schools in the first place? Because we want to check community spread and contamination. We want to reduce population. It's a bit worrisome. It's a bit worrisome, especially when we know that as a poor nation, heavily indebted poor nation with little resources, with fewer medical personnel, we really do not have everything under our control as far as this pandemic is concerned. It's a bit hasty. It's a bit hasty in as much as it is a proactive move, but I think that it might land us in our own trap it's very possible that by that date, thank God there was a clause under that provision that it is open to modification. I am very sure that we shall see a modification if things do not work out the way our projections might have been made. Okay,
Mr. George Mufo, even if the spread of the coronavirus is minimal in Cameroon by June, wouldn't they still be putting school-going children in harm's way by letting them go to school and thereby breaking social distancing?
I think, let me go. along Sama's thinking to reassure him also that he said something there which I will follow his path to also bring in a comparison which to me could also act like a reference point. You know, the country which is leading now on the death rate or number of deaths is the US. And if you imagine that paradoxically, you know, for the first time in the history of New York City and other states and the rest, people could sleep. Because New York City could be that type of place where they thought that they could change nature, where 24 and 24, you couldn't know the difference between day and night. But again, the US, even with the increased death rates, the same Trump again has started to announce a program for de-locking the state, and is giving a period that progressively the lockdown will be loosening up, even empowering the government, the various governors of the various states to weigh the opportunity either to continue locking down or opening up. But he has actually said the economy will be opening up. And also paradoxically, China, that this thing started, the same Wuhan, that this thing started, also opened up. But when they did that, because they thought that the incidence of the virus has stabilized, after a particular period, there was an outbreak of those infections. So, you see, it is the humanity, it's the human beings that adapt. Because, like I'm saying, if we even close school for 100 years without a change of our attitudes, we are, first of all, as Cameroonians, very indisciplined. Yes. You just need to go out there. You don't need to be afraid, because even some of these things that we're hanging on our faces and all of that, there's no guarantee. Because when you ask some of the people, I love the picture that Cyril painted, that somebody, I might have even been talking about somebody, is a poor student. It means that person is literate to know that a paper
cannot last for long.
Is not something to protect you. Which means that even those who are even wearing cloth on their faces, let me just say this now for purpose of pedagogy, that for you to test a good face mask, when you put it on your face, take a simple stick of match and light it. If you can send out air and the fire goes off, know that that mask is not a good one. Okay. That same air that has passed, that same air that the virus will follow to also infect you. So by putting even this thing on our face, without, because people are asking what is the standard one or whatever, that's the simple test that you can be able to know whether what you are carrying is protecting you, or you just because you are afraid of. So let us not be doing some of these things because we are afraid of the government or the rest. In the same token that I'm saying that schools opening 100 years or opening on the 1st of June, the responsibility of our health is first of all the individual. When the government says that we should maintain 1 meter distance or 1.5 meter distance and the rest, you don't need the government. This scientific definition of safety. Yes. When I come and see reasonable adults here still doing selfie and holding themselves and kissing or all of those things, you don't need a government, because it's the same thing when they will be going to school. The government will say, okay, like now those people who are going to churches where they will ask people to sit or probably 1 per pew. There are some people who will still say married to Jesus, and they will still be shouting and even holding themselves and all of those things. So you see, the virus does not move. Yes. It's people who move and contaminate one another. That date, you see, it was conditioned on certain, I'm sure if you have when they interviewed even some parents in Yaoundé, some of them were for the fact that they were already tired with their children at home and the rest. Some were saying that whatever is going to happen, they hope the government is going to take measures and all that. The government can take all the measures, but the responsibility is for educating yourself first of what to do and not to do to stay safe.
Okay. Mr. Njimo Sirio, do you see government's decision to possibly reopen schools by June 1 as a way of giving hope to Cameroonians that there might be light at the end of the tunnel despite these adversities?
I think you have answered the question just by asking, because in French they always say gouverner c'est prévoir.
Yes.
Meaning to govern people you must predict. If you fail to do that, and people start making their prediction from home, you will not catch up. So it's always good that the people should have a target. The people should be looking up to something up next. Yes, that makes them to stay on alert, stay disciplined, and at least on that move, I should give a good to the John's good day. Now, there's an aspect that if we fail to talk about here, it will not be good. Is the attitude of the men in uniform, the policemen that are supposed to guide people. They are instead creating fear, panic. As Mr. Just rightly put it, most people are not putting the masks because they really want to respect government measures or that they are sticking to it. For example, once you put out the mask, your mouth is not supposed to be seen as it's being seen here. The nose is not supposed to be exposed because there's a distance of 6 feet that is supposed to be observed.
Yes.
Besides that, if I'm carrying the virus and I sit here and talking, it doesn't matter, all of you wait to have it, which I don't wish. So it's to show that if the men in uniform change their ways and become educative, and I want to insist on that because all those I've met on the street, it's only when they see the truck coming that you see them hastily looking for their marks. It's not supposed to be like that.
But let's talk of the potential reopening of schools. How will government ensure that people are safe amid this time? Because certainly Corona, and I hate to be the devil's advocate here, might not end by June.
That is where I'm going to disappoint you, to tell you that this government, everything for them is politicizing. It's not like they have put any guidelines to show that, yes, by June 1st, there was a projection from the United States, the very United States, I think it's San Antonio, that started the prediction showing how the curve was climbing sometime around May and is going to land sometime in June. That prediction, I've seen it personally. Now, the government, to show good faith, was supposed to even put on the website a particular prediction. What are our own scholars good for? Sometimes I ask myself, recently we have been giving data analysis classes to some students using remote system, and I told them, if you cannot use the statistics that the government through the Ministry of Public Health have been publishing to make prediction for this, then we are wasting our time. What kind of data can you be analyzing without being able to make prediction for the future? And that is where we want to call our own government back to work, that to make this measure palliable, to make this measure workable, they should be able to give evidence. Now, the second clause that has been put as a guide that this will be based on the evolution, that is just politics. Politics is just trying to cast things without having clear evidence and saying that when time comes we are going to.
But we cannot say for sure whether they consulted experts before making this.
Excuse me, where are the facts? You know, in statistics we say with data you can easily convince.
Yes.
Without data, everything is an idea.
Okay.
So, in order to push forward that idea, I call on the government, the very Prime Minister, that during his next outing, he should be able to back his statement with some proof that, okay, this is our prediction and this is why we think that by June the 1st, we should be resuming school. And not only school, as we write there. I want to correct something that I heard here. Even church has a calendar. I'm an elder in church and we have a calendar. It might not run from January the 1st to the 12th to December the 31st, but we have a calendar, and it is based on that calendar that we have General Assembly in church, that we re-elect elders and other officials of the church. So all the measures that we're taking, transportation and other measures, if school is resuming, those other measures should also have indicative that we should also resume, because it's not only one sector that is paralyzed.
Sure, but the government says they'll talk about the other sectors. But Mr. Samana, for secondary, primary and nursery schools in Cameroon, the end of the academic year is usually in June. And this time, if we are to start or resume in that same June, how long could it take for the academic year to end and for kids to go on vacation?
I think it's just ordinary that adjustments would be made to either shorten the period for holidays or to ensure that we do not encroach very much into the next academic year. But if you go by the tentative or the leaked modified calendar of the Minister of Secondary Education, which was termed fake, though to be was leaked, they had already projected that the academic year 2020-2021 would start on the 23rd of September rather than the 2nd, which means they had already projected into next academic year. So all of that adjustments have to be made. And those adjustments are not just adjustments that will last for 1 year, because it would be, the multiplier effect would extend to maybe a couple of years beyond now, because all of those adjustments have to actually stretch out to a much longer period. But again, to me, as a teacher, we called for school lockdown, or schools were locked down at a time when we had virtually finished with the second term, traditional second term, or the new appellation, which is called semester. And usually we were left with just 1 term, which traditionally is the shortest of the 3 terms, if I choose to go by the old appellation. Not to further aggravate matters, we can evaluate and promote children of non-certificate classes at that level. At that level, it is nationwide.
Correct.
That could be a proposal. For those who were to take certificate exams, we can call them back to school. They will be able to ensure social distancing, so that we have fewer numbers in school and get more teachers. So that rather than have Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, Form 4, we keep all of them at home and evaluate their promotion criteria on the basis of first term and then second term, and work with just the examination classes who are taking end of course exams. Work with them and then evaluate them with whether it's common entrance or it's GCE, advanced level, ordinary level. That way we would be able to effectively make sure that we do not expose a larger number to harm's way, and we respect that cardinal principle of social distance. That could be a proposal. But again, it's unfortunate that I followed, or I was able to talk with a good number of trade union activists in the teaching corps, and they lamented the fact that those projected suggestions were made without consulting them. It's again, since we are in a one-man and a one-party system where even civil society organizations are irrelevant, government did not consult them, so it's like give the impression that government thinks that it's a one-man show, and without knowing the role that these other organizations and institutions can play. It is again, as I said here the other day, nobody has the password for the fight against COVID. Nobody has the password now, and so every little effort, every little genuine effort, not a political effort, every genuine effort should be welcome and entertained. Okay,
Mr. Mofo, the ministries of education at their different levels are encouraging e-learning at this time, and they've just about kick-started. I'm not sure they've been up to a month since these kids started learning via TV channels like High TV here. We do give out those kinds of lessons, and state media does same. Shouldn't government have waited for, say, 3 months to see and test how effective this medium is before deciding on this kind of a date?
The question you are legitimizing extraordinary measures which are supposed to be ordinary activities that should be taking place normally. What probably Cameroonians are seeing as innovation through e-learning is what is practiced in other environments from the day internet became a democratically accessed tool to facilitate communication. But like I said, you will discover that this pandemic gave Cameroonians the opportunity to see that they can be able to go back to their inner selves and come out with things which they were taking for granted. E-learning has been taking place. In fact, and also let me also let you know that this tradition of what I call them first term, second term, 3 months holidays, and all of those things, it has been also typically probably a Cameroonian syndrome where in other places people go to school around the year, which means they go to school in different batches. That's why you will find some people talk about summer intake, winter intake, or spring intake, all of those things. But you see again, this is again the extraordinary quality of a human being, adaptability. You just saw and listened to what the pedagogue Sama was saying there. He couldn't have been thinking about, because I never ever thought that there must be 3 months for class 1, nursery 1 or nursery 2 children to be in school for 9 months before they are promoted from one level to another. After all, it is, I'm not sure it is based on the duration that you spend in school, but it's based on the volume of work that is covered. So it means that what we can adapt a situation whereby, because of the exigencies of the time, we say, okay, because we were supposed to have covered X quantity of work for this particular year, and we've covered just 75% of it. Progressively, we can say, okay, the following year, we could decide either we say we do 125%, or we say, okay, we spread it out and say, okay, next year we do 115%, the other year we do 110%. These are all creative solutions to a problem that we never invited in our milieu. So I want us to sit here, and I'm happy because then now we are now doing generative solutions, instead of always going back to say, no, why should I have said this, and this must be what we have been practicing before, and if you do that, it's going to, this thing is not going to work. So, Sam, I doff my hat to you to inspiring us to think differently, and let people also think that schooling must always be face-to-face. Let the culture of technology, which I said that we have not explored at the level of the state, politically. There is a young woman now who is in parliament. I doff my hat to that woman. She is making maximum use of the technology of what they call proximity communication. She's in Douala there. But she can be able to be present in Yaoundé, Douala, and the whole country at the same time, giving protective mask here and still sitting in parliament to represent the people there with a bill. That is what we should move out of lethargy of saying that it has always been done like that, and move out of generative solutions where we are addressing issues even before they meet us. So 1st of June is an indicative date. The priority now, since we have also grown up in a certificate culture, that people have to be certified. Fine, if they need a certain standard operation principle which is put in place, that you must sit, not also respecting the fact that today it is not a must that people must write only what they call long essays or whatever thing. You can still use other tool of evaluating students and certifying them. Correct. These are all generative solutions that I'm saying that all the pedagogues, the educational people should. After all, I've been doing international certification that you never even know who is teaching you on the other side. You just go through online, you pay whatever thing, you are given material, you read. On the day of examination, you go yourself and you do examination through the computer, and you do multiple choice, and a machine is marking it, and instantly you know a result whether you pass or you fail. There's one school in this country which has tried that, which now they're writing their entrance examination using now but the artificial the internet. Last year they were writing by face-to-face and having orals. But this year, because of this thing, they have still programmed the examination, and coincidentally this school is an IT school, using now other strategy to still evaluate students using the online approach, and the students are still going to be evaluated, and they will still go to the entry or entrance following the same standard. So let us explore all our ingenuity to come out with practical ways to do the same thing, and even why not doing them better.
Okay, Cyril, Mr. Sama opened his statement in the program by giving us an anecdote of how some authorities in school are still compelling students to come here in the southwest. And
Here in Biya, I mean?
Here in Biya, and do internships. If that is true and such flagrant disregard of authorities from the Prime Minister, head of government, how then can we assess the level of effectiveness of that Prime Minister's own teaching when they have already started disregarding it right now in April?
You see how amazing your question is. It gets me nervy to totally maybe distance myself from what Mr. Sama said by forecasting that we should bring students of examination classes together. The first thing is that going by every deduction reasoning, if you take even sometimes when we criticize another person, we'll come back, we want to make a proposal, it boils down to the same truth that all of us, in one way or the other, have not yet really had a direct pinch of this virus. And that is why we are lukewarm. The mitigation level of the virus has not reached that level where you can really be contained, as the word confinement defines. All what we have been saying here, the only way out is to reinforce our remote learning system. That is the only way out. Now, take the case that has been organized even here at High TV. When I sometimes I check it on between, I think 1 to 2 or something, 12 to, yeah, I always check it. How many people are connected? What's the level of the internet? I even said in the office I want to follow, nothing. What I'm telling you today, I learned about, I visited my history note, was aired on the national station for 15 minutes. Now, we have to multiply those efforts. That is the only way out. There's nothing that people should be coming together. Even TV houses should start adopting a remote system. We have seen that on other sister media. I don't want to be mentioning. So there is a lot of work on us that are already the lamb touch for the younger generation. There's a lot that they're expecting from us. And it's not unfortunate that it is only the next republic that will give that to us. Because I will not lie to you, the culture of resigning is not part of us. Even haven't noticed our weakness, our inability, our inefficiency to deliver. Most of us, we stand still where we are and refuse to give possibility for the younger generation. If the faculty of engineering, the mayor of I want to take it in our municipality, the mayor of Biya does not wait that the governor should give him another ultimatum for him to come out, call 15 students and say that I want you people to create a solution for students here in town. Before you know it, I used to hear the talk about the Silicon Mount, what have they called it? The Biya something, Silicon Mountain. What has it become if not making noise on air? This is where we want these high-tech people to come and prove their work, because after this, as we have like talking about shifting paradigms, something will eventually, nothing will ever be the same. Anything that have dampened with the economic situation of the world will definitely affect every other sector of the society. And so, I personally, my effort has instead doubled this time. Yeah, there are so many things that I was challenged previously to do, especially when it comes to preparing lecture. Because one thing about teaching is preparedness.
Yes. Face
to face, the level of preparedness between face to face and when you have to do it remotely is, I can say, if you have to count that on a percentage, preparedness at the level of face to face is not up to 50%. You always build inferences on what you have done over the years, and so you want to use that past memory to come and teach. But with remote learning demands 4 aspects. There's a visual aspect that accounts up to 70% of learning. Now, can teacher produce PowerPoints? Can they animate? Can they produce audio? Can they produce video, interactive video that they are preparing their note on their laptop and all those things? That is the question I'm telling you, that we are not ready for that. Okay. But there's an urgency for that. Cameroon is supposed now to give an emergency plan on how to recycle this teacher. I remember when I was still with Oxford University Press, we had a project to revamp the training institution that trains teacher
to help them prepare for the technological world that is coming.
I want Mr.
You always give me but pinch of seconds.
Please wrap up.
So to wrap up, what I'm trying to say is that the responsibility is at our doorstep, all of us. Okay. There's no need to wait that they. That is, we have to look for a way to limit face-to-face move, and it starts with us. If in your business place you are not doing that, don't expect another person to do so.
Okay, Mr. Sama, I saw you looking at Cyril. I thought maybe you have a reaction. You could just give your reaction to his comment about the non-necessity of personal or physical teaching and learning now, and then I'll ask you a question right after that.
No, well, I think we are trying to explore the possibilities to salvage an already bad situation. And I am more of a realist than an idealist. I don't dream about the ideal. I try to cope and adapt with the real. And the real now is, can we patch up something and salvage an already bad academic situation? Yes. How can we do that? That is what I just said. Yes. We can salvage it by evaluating the non-examination classes at the level at which they ended and manage something for the examination classes. He seems to be arguing from the ideal. We should have electricity before we do that. We should have internet before we do that. And look at where we are coming from. Look at our level of technological development. So should we fold our arms and wait until we have 100% internet connectivity before we salvage a situation? No. So that's why, to me, I think, or if your question to him, which he did not answer and was elaborating on some other thing, has to do with, are we sure the prescriptions of the head of state and the prime minister by June 1st will be respected? If they are not being respected now, to me, it depends on how alert local authorities are. Okay. At the time when we were talking about shutdown and the lockdown of churches, would you believe with me that along my neighborhood there are churches that still pull crowds on Sundays in sheer defiance of the instruction? Do you believe with me? That's where I come in to what Josh said. In my neighborhood, you still find young boys who still have the courage to go play football matches on small pitches. And when the police pass around to arrest them, people will start crying foul. It's a matter of, in as much as we expect much from the state, because we are part and parcel of the state, and the state is the supra institution, we should come down to what Josh said. It's personal discipline, because it is our own safety and our own livelihood first.
That brings me to my very brief question to you. Are you ready to resume teaching in June?
Am I ready to resume teaching in June? Yes, provided by June the government says the conditions are okay and schoolwork should begin.
Okay. Mr. Judge, what are your last words regarding this issue of the possibility of schools reopening on June 1 before we leave?
Yes, beyond the fact that the school begins from conception in the mind that you are ready to learn in a formal environment, I think education from the larger perspective can take place in different scenarios, different environments. It is more of the fact that there's a higher authority that has to certify people and all of that. But I think, again, in as much as we are in a certificate-driven society, schooling, formal or not formal, people should still be educating themselves. If I want to cite example of successful persons who will consider as dropouts, who made it not because of the big certificates that they push along, you would have discovered that self-discipline and focus on something that you want to know and know it so well that you become an expert in it. Whether you are a shoemaker, whether you are a painter, whether you are a carpenter, all of this, the finality is what? You want to live a better life, and you want to also contribute to your community. So let people not see the absence of the former going to school as fatality because they cannot have a full life, but let them also explore other talents that they can have with community and family guidance.
Okay. Your last word.
What I really meant, I was misquoted on the platform, is my prayer is that they should put to contribution those who have already acquired these skills to be at the forefront now. They should inject money into, because there is money in the local community, in our school. They should bring those who say they are from the IT world. They put them to contribution until they deliver before they get rest. Okay. That was my say.
Your final point now.
My final point, I want to call on every young person to actually use this period of confinement to muzzle your brain, because nobody is going to fit you in an irresponsible country where physical meeting was a good platform for corruption. And you see, the resistance to do without that system is getting on us, and we will eventually get. I'm telling you that this COVID-19 is such a double-sided blessing to some of us in the third world country, because it has exposed that Cameroon was not ready. Cameroon cannot send food, mere food like that, to household, even registered household or whatsoever. It has exposed our system, the educational system, every sector of the society, and I'm calling on young people who are following the age, whosoever sector of the society, to tell them that our responsibility lies in our hand.
Okay.
Discipline is a watchword. Discipline, discipline, and discipline.
Mr. Sama, to some of your students who might be watching you now, who are waiting to see what the outcome is in June 1, what are you telling them?
Be it June 1st or not, stay focused. Keep yourself busy. Keep your minds busy. Read your books and stay alert.
All right. Thank you all very much for making it on today's edition of Press Forum. I appreciate you all being here.
It's my pleasure. All
right, to you, our viewers, we say thank you very much for watching. That's where we draw a cap on today's edition of the program. You can always connect with me anytime on social media. On Twitter, I'm at Paul_Tweet_News, and on Facebook, I use the handle Pongia. From me and the rest of the team here, we say thank you for the privilege of your company. Don't forget, coronavirus is real, so always wash your hands and be sure to practice social distancing, because that's what's going to keep us safe. Have yourselves a great evening.